Good evening, I'm Katerina Georgieva. Here's what's making news right now.
They continue to be blamed for a public health pandemic. They continue to be shut out when the system feigned surprise at coming up against Omicron.
I believed it was the right step, and it allows us as a council to move forward without the encumbrance of having somebody who's pled guilty to an election charge.
We've had to pivot from Delta in prior waves to Omicron. Omicron is more transmissible but less virulent as a disease, and we've modified our protocols as a result.
Thanks for joining us. The local health unit has paused the arrival of migrant workers in Windsor, Essex. That decision comes as current isolation centers are full, with thousands more workers expected to arrive in the coming weeks. Our Chris Ensing joins me now live from Leamington. Chris, what is the situation like for workers right now?
Yeah, the health unit today, Kat, explaining a very overwhelmed system. Essentially, there's about 2,000 foreign workers who are in Windsor, Essex right now. 10% of them are either positive or isolating because they're a close contact of COVID-19. There's an isolation hotel in Windsor that's 2 floors, about more than 100 beds. They're all full, and they're using several other hotels as well to try and make sure there's places for people to stay safely. Now, because of that overwhelmed system, they're putting a 3-week pause on the migrant worker arrivals for farms in our region. And this comes as thousands were expected to be here. Peak season, we usually hit about 8,000 here in Windsor, Essex. And while it does impact workers who are sick, there's also some trickle effects as well. It's going to cost the industry big time.
It's absolutely not good.
This pause on workers could be catastrophic for crops.
Once the plants grow too wild, they can't be cultivated, and so they have to be basically killed down. So you're talking about massive amounts of food waste, tons of money being poured down, down the toilet. It's terrible.
Leamington's mayor says the region is bracing for impact.
It's a drastic measure in drastic times. I fear for our industry. I fear for our farms. Potential loss is in the, I would say, more than millions.
The municipality waiting for upper levels of government to act.
I honestly can't believe we're in this predicament 3 years in. I would like to think we would have this figured out after this point. I'm already saying shame on us, but if this went another year, oh my gosh, then we are so completely inefficient that we don't deserve to be here, to be taking care of these things. We don't deserve to be at the upper levels. Then bring somebody new in to handle this. Perhaps private enterprise could do it better. There's no excuse for this. At the 3-year mark, there is no excuse for this at all.
Advocates for migrant workers aren't surprised, repeating calls for permanent resident status for workers, saying it would help them advocate for themselves. Adding this pause shows a continued collective failure for migrant workers.
While the last 2 years have proven that it is abysmal living and working conditions, that's the real cause. And those conditions have not improved. And with Omicron, these outbreaks are no surprise to anyone. So instead of shifting the blame and slamming the door shut on workers, the region, Ontario, and Canada must work together to provide PPE, quarantine and isolation facilities, $500 per week, regardless of social insurance number, both to workers that are here and to workers who are now not being able to come back.
The acting medical officer of health agrees, saying housing standards need to improve.
I think it would be fair to characterize those standards as insufficient to prevent the transmission of communicable diseases, and probably is not consistent with what our culture would consider a reasonable accommodation for a person. The minimum space requirement is 80 square feet per worker.
Now, this situation right now ongoing, that pause in place for 3 weeks until February 2nd, I was able to ask the federal government about this going forward by the health unit, not the federal government. They said that they are taking steps to try and help in this situation, including reestablishing the Toronto Pearson International Airport Vaccination Clinic. Now, they've also said, and this just coming to us now, that they're preparing to facilitate the transfer of temporary foreign workers to other employers or safe isolation sites that are outside of the affected region, which could mean workers here moving outside of Windsor-Essex to isolate. They said that they're also trying to find a way to make sure there are support organizations present at the airport for people who are arriving as temporary foreign workers. Again, all of this happening because of the overwhelmed system, Kat, which goes to show how much that temporary isolation center, which is funded until March, is needed in our community. The last time this came up, we did ask the local representative about this, Eric Kuzmaricek for Windsor-Tecumseh, who said that it was a priority and something that needed to continue here in Windsor-Essex.
Thanks for this, Chris. CBC's Chris Ensing live tonight in Leamington. Meanwhile, COVID hospitalizations in Windsor-Essex, they are spiking. There are currently 87 people in hospital with the disease, and that's a jump of 18 new patients since yesterday. The health unit is also reporting that a man in his 80s has died. He was a resident in a long-term care or retirement home in the community. This as 22 seniors' homes are currently under an outbreak. And Hotel du Grace has also declared an outbreak in its rehabilitation unit on the 3rd floor. Officials say there are now 4 patients who have tested positive. Windsor Regional is also dealing with a number of outbreaks. Movie lovers will soon have one less place to get their cinematic experience in Windsor. Cineplex says it is closing its Silver City location at Walker and Provincial Roads. And the landlord says that might mean the building will need to be demolished. Jacob Barker has more.
Well, it's an empty parking lot here at Silver City Windsor Cinemas, and it's not an uncommon sight during the pandemic to see this, but the company says the pandemic is not the reason it's not renewing its lease. In a statement to the CBC, it said the decision was unrelated to the temporary closures in Ontario or COVID-19 and its impact on their business. It also says that pre-pandemic moviegoers were gravitating towards the newer amenities at the nearby Cineplex Odeon Devonshire Mall Cinemas location. Well, this isn't welcome news to the landlord of the property, who says the building will likely need to be demolished.
What does one do with a theater that was built for one use and one use only? The only alternative is to take the building down.
Mikhail says he has waived considerable amounts of the costs for Cineplex during the pandemic.
Well, we took a huge hit, hoping that to help them out, but unfortunately, the industry is what it is, and they can only do what they can do.
Now he says the only thing he can do is plead to the public to help save the theater.
I guess I'm reaching out here and saying, do we want another theater? Can this community support a second theater? And if so, let's have our voices heard.
Well, Mikhail says that this building has stood on this spot for the last 25 years, and another potential tenant that could move in is Landmark Cinemas. He says that they did express interest in moving into the building before the pandemic, but he says right now they're sitting tight. Jacob Barker, CBC News, Windsor.
The mayor of Essex is stepping down. Larry Snively's resignation comes just days after pleading guilty to violating the Ontario Elections Act. That centered around Snively using ineligible voters to vote on another resident's behalf. While the matter took nearly 3.5 years to settle, one Essex councillor says it did not stop council from doing the best for their town.
But as far as the last 3 years, did I have that hanging over my head? Did I feel that that was a hindrance to us doing our job? No. We went out, we did our job. A lot of great things have happened in this town the last 3 years. And now the verdict has been read, the plea was put forward, and the correct steps, I believe, have now happened. But it did not stop us from doing our job.
Snively did not want to comment on his resignation today. His departure could result in a by-election, or council could appoint someone to the mayor's seat. Anyone on council can be appointed. When Ontario's educators return to schools on Monday, they'll each get 2 COVID-19 rapid tests. Students will get the tests after that. The education minister says it's one of the steps being taken to keep schools safe when in-person learning resumes. But concerns remain tonight about new protocols around tracking and reporting COVID-19 in schools. Ali Chasson has the details.
As much as the province said they are doing in providing PPE and rapid tests,
staff and students will receive 2 tests each as an initial supply, with over 3.9 million rapid tests shipped to schools as we speak, ready for January 17th.
One thing they are not budging on is reporting COVID case counts at schools. Instead, schools will report absences. You won't know how many are due to a COVID outbreak. No longer necessary, officials say, because parents can use rapid tests and rely on screening measures.
We've also created a more stricter screening protocol for students and staff before they enter schools to help prevent any cases from getting there in the first place.
Because I have a small baby at home, I just feel afraid of, what he could bring back into the house.
Whether parents feel the schools themselves are safe or they're sufficiently equipped with masks and tests, it's the lack of transparency around school cases that's unsettling for a lot of parents, like Savannah Downs, whose eldest son just got over his COVID-19 infection.
It feels so risky that I don't feel comfortable sending him on Monday because I don't know what I'm sending him into.
But schools are not to be feared, according to the Chief Medical Officer of Health.
Schools will reflect what's going on in the community. Schools are not and have not been shown to be a significant multiplier of risk.
When 30% of staff and students at a particular school is absent, parents will be notified, and a network of teachers in training and retired teachers will be called to step in. We found one of them waiting in line to try to get a box of rapid tests ahead of Monday.
I'm one of the retired teachers who's been helping out both last year and this year. I taught almost every day last year.
She's one of the many people feeling reluctantly ready to be back in class on Monday.
I think that the rapid test may not be perfect, but it's one of our arsenal to protect ourselves and our community.
Ali Chasson, CBC News, Toronto.
We spoke with 2 Windsor High School students who were watching that announcement from the province, and they were disappointed around the lack of specifics around safety measures.
We want to know, where these filters are going, what schools have them, what schools don't. So I think that we need that transparency and that clarity around the actions that are being taken.
We kind of feel like we've been left out from everything the government has been saying, especially I have 30 students in my English classroom back to back at no fault of my school board. We don't have a medical grade air filter and a window that barely opens. So I do have questions, how come I'm in an English classroom with so many students? Where's our medical grade air filter? Where's our HVAC system? It's just not enough.
They've both had classmates sent home to isolate because of COVID-19, and so they're worried about these changes to the protocols, especially around tracking the virus in schools.
That's alarming to me because I'm going to continue going to school knowing that someone in my class maybe 2 days ago was now home isolating. And maybe I'm only privy to that knowledge now because I'm friends with them, and that's not being shared at a school board or provincial level. So that's a little bit alarming to me, is that students are going to continue going to school regardless if there's a positive case in their class. I think before having that assurance of getting sent home, knowing that someone in your class is positive, out of an abundance of caution, was good.
We know that rapid antigen tests are a hot commodity. Well, today about 1,000 were handed out here in Windsor, and they were quickly snatched up.
You're very welcome. Hi.
Actually, we were here about 9 o'clock, and I was able to speak to the people there, and they said there's 1,000 available a day, and
We're about 100 and something.
We're about 100 and some back, and then the line is kind of disorganized because those people, if you're past 1,000, you're not going to get anything today, and they're lined up all the way to Harvey's or whatever. So, oh well, it's first come, first serve, as they say.
This is our first time.
Yeah, this is our first time.
We haven't been able to get any.
So we just want to have it just in case, with not being able to go get tested and whatnot. And I work out in the community, so I thought, it's a good idea. She's in school, but we'll see what happens.
I mean, people obviously need it, right? So I feel like they should definitely have more sites so people have more opportunities to get rapid tests.
I was a little bit concerned, but now I feel little safe because I can immediately test at home itself, and if I test positive, I can immediately quarantine myself. So yeah, I feel little safe, and also I won't infect others by testing it immediately.
Some of our friends did get it, but I haven't. I've been quarantining, and I don't have any symptoms, but I'm not going out. We didn't even drive together, and we live by each other.
Okay.
So no, we're just trying to be safe and do what we're supposed to do.
I really wasn't looking forward to this, but now that they're available here in Windsor, I decided to take advantage of it.
And your experience with the line and making that way through?
It's fine. I spoke to people in front of me and back of me, and we were distancing away, just talking away. And first thing you knew, in 15 minutes, we were able to obtain our antigen test. Yeah.
How excited are you now that you have?
Really excited.
Yeah. Do you feel a little bit safer now?
I do, because if anybody in my household gets symptoms, then we can get to use the test without going out and causing anybody else any problems.
The University of Windsor has launched a new course on race and anti-Black racism. Students can now enroll in the elective, which begins next month. The school says the course is the first of its kind. It's part of a number of initiatives the university has underway to address racism on campus. One diversity expert says it's coming a bit late, but it is a good start.
I think it should have been available a while ago. We've known these issues for a very long time. The issues of racism and anti-racism didn't start in 2020 with the murder of George Floyd. But it's never too late to do the right thing. By implementing it now, the university can start putting in some of those courses, educational materials, and resources that would be helpful for the students and the community at large.
If you hate to parallel park and you're going for your final driver's road test soon, you might not need to do it. The province is dropping it as a requirement for a G-class license. It's all part of the province's plan to shorten the test to help clear a massive backlog built up during the pandemic. Del Molnar now on what drivers think about this.
Approach, lining up to the back bumper. One full turn to the right. Back up, lining up your front to their rear bumper.
It's really a simple procedure, but if you don't follow the right steps, parallel parking can be a real pain. But there is a huge backlog of people needing to take tests, so the province decided it need not be a requirement for a G-class license in order to clear testing backlog. These girls don't have licenses, but aren't sure it's a good idea to forego the test.
I think it's just such a stupid idea to not add parallel parking. There's already idiots on the road as it is.
I think that would cause a real big mess, and because if people don't know how to parallel park, then there's going to be probably crashes everywhere.
Esther Yang got her driver's license today and didn't have to parallel park.
There's definitely a lot less pressure since I've known from multiple people that parallel parking was one of the hardest things to do. I think it's still pretty important, but to not be tested on it makes it a lot easier.
Now, before you get too excited, it's still at the discretion of the driver examiner of whether or not you need to do these things. The other two items that you don't have to necessarily prove are that you can do a three-point turn or an emergency roadside stop.
This truck driver sees enough bad driving on the road and thinks removing the requirements is a bad idea.
I think it's extremely dangerous. All those things are very important in everyday driving. So people are going to get in these situations where they're not going to be trained properly to park where they're supposed to park or park properly, which it's dangerous all around. It's just laziness, in my opinion, to not take the time to teach the people how they're supposed to be driving correctly.
The requirements will only be lifted until the end of March to get the backlog cleared. Now, if we could only get drivers to park in parking lots properly. Dale Molnar, CBC News, Windsor.
The parallel park, the bane of everybody's existence. A live look outside there. Periods of light snow mixed with some rain tonight. Colette Kennedy will be here with your weather right after the break. Colette Kennedy is here now for a look at our weather forecast. Colette, it was easier today for me to go outside for my daily walk because it was definitely milder than yesterday, thank goodness.
Yeah, some beautiful temperatures. I mean, for this time of year, and we know it can't last, so of course it isn't going to. And I want to show you kind of sort of the pattern that's going to be coming our way. We've still got a little bit of time yet, though, to look at these kind of conditions. So hang on to the mild readings. Let me show you, though, those graphics, and we can see what's happening with this upper flow that we have. So we're still into the milds when you see those greens, right? Those temperatures around freezing just above. But watch how the purples and pinks are going to start dipping down towards the upper Great Lakes. Now, as we get towards Friday night into Saturday, very cold air returns, and Friday's kind of a transition day. And then Saturday into the day, even, we'll see temperatures possibly falling further. Now, in southwestern Ontario, guess what? We get off a little bit better than our neighbors, just a little bit further east. So those lows around the minus teens in terms of what we'll be seeing. Not today, though. 4 degrees for that daytime high, 0 for London, 2 for Sarnia. And these are the current temperatures, so still above freezing or at freezing in the case of Chatham-Kent. And that's why we're seeing mostly some showery activity, mixing a little bit. And as the temperature falls overnight, we will see a little more mixing. But by then, most of this will be gone. So the road's a little bit greasy as we go through the evening hours, and then some fog developing behind this. So look out for a little fog and some reduced visibility in the morning hours tomorrow. Otherwise, this moves on. Unfortunately, the clouds don't. We get into a risk of some flurries late day tomorrow, but should see drier conditions during the day. And finally, we'll get into some clearing. Unfortunately, it's as that cold air comes in. But you know how the cold is easier to take when it's sunny? So it'll be those kinds of conditions. Here's a look at those mild overnight temperatures, -3 for our low. Still up above that 0. So tomorrow, 2 degrees with late day, a few showers, or not showers, pardon me, wet flurries returning. And then Friday, you see how it's going to be kind of that transition day, that temperature likely falling through the day. And then -13, I may be going a little easy on us on some of those lows, but into Saturday, that daytime high on Saturday, -8. And I will mention I'm watching a system, Katarina, for the end of the weekend towards the beginning of next week, where we may see some significant accumulations of snow. So that's something I'm keeping my eye on, and I'll keep you up to date on that one.
Thanks so much, Colette. My whole body is going like this just listening to you, but thank you for that update. Now, when we come back, we've got 6 goldfish, a team of scientists, and an aquarium on wheels. So we'll have that story for you right after the break. Israeli scientists have taught 6 goldfish to drive an aquarium on wheels. It's to understand the extent of their navigational skills and their cognitive capabilities. Take a look.
Here we see a fish inside the fish-operated vehicle. And with this vehicle, the fish gets to navigate on land, a place where fish usually don't go, and it gets to solve a navigational task, while at the same time it learns both how to operate this vehicle and also it learns what their task is and how to solve it the most efficient way. Surprisingly, it doesn't take the fish a long time to learn how to drive the vehicle. They're very confused at first, they don't know what's going on, but they're very quick to realize that there's a correlation between their movement and the movement of the machine that they're in. So it's something that they learn quite quickly.
This is a preliminary study. We used 6 fish, and they were all able to learn the task to some extent. There were very good fish that were doing excellent, and there were mediocre fish that were showed controlling of the vehicle, but were less proficient in driving.
So cool. Thanks so much for watching. Have a good night.